And today's motivational service, and so if you didn't know, we have two services, one at 9 a.m. that's more experiential. We have another service at 10:30, which is more motivational. And people always ask me, well, what are the services like? I say, they're like a box of spiritual chocolates. You know, you never know what you're going to get. It's all good. We have a theme for the month that a lot of times the speakers will weave that theme into their talk. So, spiritual chocolates, I love chocolates. So our speaker today is Jen Grant. And Jen comes to Lake Harriet Spiritual Community with a passion for serving and supporting others to recognize and embrace that they are amazing. This passion led her to start her own business, which is called Inspiring Radiance. She travels as a speaker and author, sharing empowering messages. Jen is also the managing director for the Twin Cities chapter of eWomen. It's a network, the eWomen Network. When she's not in a service role, you might find her in nature, playing in her garden, or packing for her next travel adventure. So please help me welcome Jen Grant.
Thank you so much. Rumi says to us, "Don't you know yet? It is your light that lights worlds." Don't you know yet? It is your light that lights worlds. Our theme for the month of December is living in the light. If you've heard me share, you would have heard me say that the theme is always perfect. And when this one dropped in, it was in the middle of my husband and I having a conversation in our kitchen. And I was sharing with him something I'm going through right now. Anyone else have any struggles? Anything that you're like working through? You know, we do the best we can, right? But still, we have things we work through and challenges. And often you'll hear me say that I see challenges as opportunities for growth and expansion, right? Like when I'm living in my lighted space, I will have that energy of, it's an opportunity for growth and expansion. And if we're honest, sometimes challenges are just hard, right? So I'm standing in the kitchen with my husband, and we're talking about this really great opportunity that's coming up, a challenge that I'm working through, and I asked him, more rhetorical, right? Just like seeking support, right? Have you ever done that? Like, I'm going to ask a question and you're going to give me a great response because I know that I need a little bit of affirmation, a little bit of outside support as I dig in, right? So I ask him a question and he looks at me and he says, "Honey, because you're meant to be a beacon. You're meant to be a beacon. That's why you're going through this, so that you can come out the other side and be a beacon." Now, sometimes with my husband, those things come out, I'm like, where did that come from? And other times, it's just like, oh, bless you for saying exactly what I needed to hear. And it was kind of a mix, right? Like, where did that come from? And also, bless you for reminding me that I get to go through this, so on the other side, I get to be a beacon. And then I go to my email and I check, and the theme for the month is living in the light. Like, of course it is, right? But of course it is. How perfect those reminders often come in, especially when we're paying attention to it. Maybe you've noticed that too. So Rumi again says, "Don't you know yet? It is your light that lights worlds." So I want to talk to you about light and how I lean into that and what that means to me. Now, when I think of the word light, the acronym that came to mind was live intentionally with gratitude, honor, and trust. Live intentionally with gratitude, honor, and trust. So we're going to talk about all 5 of those during our time together. So let's start with live, right? You're here. You're living, technically, right? You're living. If you're in this space, you're upright. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. So you got that one down. I'll give you the freebie, right? You've got the L. You're here, you're living, you're in it. But are you really living? How many times do we see people, maybe you are this person, maybe you know this person, and they're just doing their best to get through? Or maybe they're not even curious about what might be better. They're doing what they've been told without questioning. They go to work, they come home, they have their responsibilities, their chores, and then they show up and they do it again the next day, and the next day, and the next day, until they get to the weekend. And then we dread Monday, and here we go again. Is that living? I'm not sure. I'm not here to tell you what is or isn't living, but I do want you to consider, am I living when I think of the light, and Rumi's quote saying, "It is your light that lights worlds," is the way that you're living an invitation for anyone else to see the light in the way that you're doing it? And again, it's not about living in the light every single day, because I've tried it and it doesn't work. I'm a speaker and I am meant to inspire and empower and encourage. And even from that perspective, it doesn't always work. So it's not about living in the light or from the light every single day, but it might be about recognizing, am I living in a way day to day that I will be able to look back on and say, yes, that was living. Yeah, I lived. Or are you at a point in your life where you're wondering what might be different? What could look a little differently for me, so that when I get further along, I can look back and go, oh, look at what I've been able to create. So when we think about live, I want to add the I on pretty quickly, because to me it's about intentionality. So it's living intentionally. Can you live with intention? Can you live from a place of curiosity and a place of being deliberate? There's a gentleman that I work with. He's a consultant, and he teaches people creating new habits. And so he talks a lot about how to live your life in a way that you want from a place of creating new habits. And as we were talking one day, I told him, I'm like, oh, I've got it. It's like living by design versus living by default. And when we live intentionally, it's all about living by design. Again, it doesn't mean that challenges aren't going to come. You might still have challenges, but when we live by design, we're better equipped to show up in a different way. Versus living by default, that initial way that we live. We are raised a certain way, we're meant to do a certain thing, we're supposed to show up this way because society has taught us, our teachers have taught us, our parents have taught us, and all of these places are doing the best that they can, until we start to question and realize, wait, how is that working for me? And in the moment that you're willing to ask that question is the moment that the answers can drop in. So it's about starting with the question, starting with curiosity. Can I be curious about what an intentional way of living might look like? I want you to think back to a time when you've done something with intention. It could be anything. It might be a trip that you planned. It might be going after a job that you wanted. It might be scheduling a day out. It might be showing up here this morning. Something where you put some intention behind it. You were deliberate about that action. And I want you to think about how that felt for you. When we are intentional about the way that we live, that naturally lends itself to a more aligned and, dare I say, lighted space. When we're leaning into intention, it's generally the more positive things. When we're deliberate about creating something in our life, when we're living by design, those things generally serve us. Bad habits, quote unquote, bad habits, are generally not on purpose. They're generally not designed, right? We kind of fall into them because we're not living from enough design. We're not living from enough intentionality. So I want you to think about where in your life are you living with intention? How is that serving you? I bet it's serving you more than areas where you're not. Because the moment that we live with more intention, we are naturally bringing more light into the space. Let's move on to G. We'll come back and tie it all together. So G, I said, is gratitude. Live intentionally with gratitude, honor, and trust. Gratitude is one of my favorite conversations to have. I think it's the perfect time of year to talk about it, though I think it's also almost an excuse to not talk about it the rest of the year. We think, oh, well, I can be grateful, I'll dive into the season of giving, and we do a great job for 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks, and then the rest of the year we just kind of move through. Again, almost by default versus design. And today I want to share with you 3 paths to gratitude. Bless you. 3 paths to gratitude that I think can have a bigger impact as you move forward. Particularly the 3rd one. So briefly, the first one, have you ever had a moment when you're driving or you're out on a walk or you're sitting in nature and you're so present in that moment that it makes you emotional? Show of hands, have you ever had anything like that? So most of us, okay. So one that I can specifically remember, there have been many, but one that just dropped me. I was driving home on 169 from a speaking engagement. It was late. And by late, let's be honest, I mean 9. But it was dark, so it felt really late. And the moon, it was a full moon. And driving by 169, if you're familiar with 169, there's the Cambria. They have the Cambria big headquarters down there. And there's a rest area. Thank goodness for the rest area. I didn't know that existed until that night. Just before that rest area, as I'm driving north, I looked up and the moon caught me in such a moment. Oh my gosh, look at you. Look at you, big, beautiful, bright. It was just amazing the way it lit up the whole sky. And tears, I can't even tell you, but you know what I mean, right? It's reverence, right? It's these moments of reverence. And reverence is defined as deep awe and gratitude. So if you ever have those reverent moments where they just kind of take you over. And reverence, to me, those type of moments are not man-made. Those type of moments are things that are bigger than us. Dare we say God, spirit, universe, whatever you want to call it. And thankfully, the rest area was right there. I was able to pull over. I got out of my vehicle, and I didn't even care that it was freezing cold. I just stood there and stared at that beautiful moon with tears streaming down my face. Reverence. The first path to gratitude is reverence. It's these moments that just strike us. Now, if we're honest, most of us are not going to have reverent moments every single day. And the reason we don't have reverent moments every single day is because we're not living so present that we notice them. They're there. It's just a matter of whether or not we're noticing them. If we're living present enough, we might be able to notice those moments. So I will encourage you, see what reverent moment you can experience today just by being present and notice it. There's a great book by Barbara Brown Taylor. She is I think she calls herself a Reformed minister. So she grew up in the church, led many, many services, and then kind of came out the other side and didn't throw it away, but came out the other side and wanted to be able to touch people that are questioning, right? And one of the things that she talked about in one of her books was this idea of reverence, in that if we're not sure how to experience it, sit in nature, maybe not our frozen over nature, but sit in nature, maybe spring. Do this in the spring. Find a spot in nature and have a seat and just notice the 2 feet around you. And she said, if you're not sure about reverence, wait until a mosquito, we know our mosquitoes here in Minnesota, don't we? Wait until a mosquito lands on you, and what is our first instinct? Thank you. That was awesome. Yes, our first, the moment it lands, our instinct is to swat it, right? She says, swat it if you must, but but not before you notice her tiny stocking feet legs as she crouches down to make you and her bloodkin. Now, I know that that's a little, maybe not Sunday service light uplifting, but if you think about that for just a moment, if you imagine, because I know you've all had a mosquito land on you, and our instinct, like you so very aptly demonstrated, is to swat it very quickly, right? But what if you just took a moment to notice they do have little stripes on their legs, little striped stocking feet on their legs, but not before she bends down. Like, notice the little knees. Little mosquitoes have knees. Seriously. But we're so quick in our way of thinking that we don't notice that. That is reverence. If you take time to notice those moments of nature, that and it can be as grand as the moon, or it can be as grand as sitting in the airplane and having the window shade up so you can see as you fly over New Zealand. My husband and I did that a number of years ago, and wow, amazing. So it might be grand on a grand scale like that, or it might be something as small as a tiny little mosquito and you notice her little knees. So that's the first path to gratitude, is reverence. It's this deep awe or gratitude of something that is created and it's bigger than us. The second path to gratitude that I love to talk about is what I refer to as forgiveness. So it's gratitude through forgiveness. Now, I don't know about you, but for me, I've had many experiences in my life where I've had opportunities to forgive myself, to forgive other people. Maybe that's familiar to you. And what I have learned on the flip side of that is if I allow myself to become light, lean into the light, lean into the forgiveness, lean into the essence of who we are is meant to connect, who we are is love. And when I allow myself to lean into that essence and then ask the questions around, again, it's about getting curious, ask the questions around this person and their intention, and is it possible that they didn't mean that? Is it possible that I'm taking that a different way? Is it possible that what they said is from their space of being hurt? Certainly. All of those and more are possible. So if I allow myself to get curious and ask questions and lean into forgiveness for myself, for others, on the flip side, I can often find gratitude in it. For example, my aunt, who is no longer with us, growing up, she was her own kind of special, we'll say. She had a way of, if you weren't living the way exactly that she wanted you to live, fill in the blank, it doesn't matter, she was harsh with her words to you. Very harsh with her words. And I witnessed this most between her and my mom. So watching her and my mom kind of have this relationship. And at one point, I realized, I caught myself saying, well, that's just her. Mama, that's just her. That has nothing to do with you. That's just her, right? And in that moment, noticing the detachment rather than being attached to what is happening, in that moment, we're able to step back and go, oh, maybe it's not about me. Mama, maybe it's not about you. Maybe it's her. That's just her. And in that space of neutral, we can notice other things, right? If I'm standing in fierce judgment of how someone is acting to me, I am tight and constricted, and nothing good can come in, right? Because I'm sitting in the tightness. But the moment I allow myself to take a breath and go, oh, that's just her. Do you see the difference? If I say, she's always, right? We know this. I know you know what that feels like. And in the next moment, I say, well, that's just her. Feels very different. It's very neutral. You see that? And then the third space is noticing, where can I have some gratitude around this? Where can I lean in and say, oh, I can be grateful for that relationship? And you know what I found after many, many years of being in judgment around her? And then I spent about 4 or 5 years of being neutral. And then I was able to move into the space of forgiveness, which led to gratitude, which was, I know how I don't want to treat people, right? I see some heads, like you get that, right? Like we can sit in judgment, that gets to be our choice, sure. And there are some things that some people do to us that maybe we could argue they deserve my judgment. But who does that hurt? That's like that whole coal analogy, right? You're holding a hot coal and thinking you're going to throw it on someone else. Who gets hurt? You do. What good is that? None. So you can sit in judgment. Sure, that's your choice. And also, can you move to neutral and go, you know what? I'm going to detach a little bit from that. And the moment you move to neutral, it just softens. And even if you never move past it, at least you're in neutral and it can soften. Oh, that's just her. That's just the way it is. That's okay. Or you can say, I'm going to live from a place of light. I'm going to step deeper because I remember and I know that I inherently am love. So I'm going to choose to lean into what would forgiveness look like. Forgiveness might be as simple as saying, now I know how I don't want to treat someone else. Thank you for that experience. Now I know how I don't want to treat someone else. And it might be bigger than that. It might be bigger in that you get to look at it and say, wow, I had no idea that I was contributing to that. I can forgive myself for that too, and them. So the moment that we move into forgiveness, we can lean into gratitude and see the gratitude come from it. Now, I would argue that those are some of the deepest and most meaningful places of gratitude. So if you're like, I'm ready for a challenge, Jen, then I'm going to say, lean into number 2. So number 1 is like reverence. Gratitude through reverence is like, let's go find the really beautiful things that nature has created and let's just live in them and be in awe, right? Deep awe, gratitude. That feels so good. And I would encourage you to do that. The second one, forgiveness, that's going to take some work. And if you're ready for a little extra work, if you're ready for like, Jen, I'm ready to live in the light in a bigger way, I would encourage you, go look at places you have forgiveness or that you need to work through some forgiveness. That's a big opportunity, right? We talked at the very beginning, I'm all about seeing the challenges as opportunities. Our forgiveness work is one of the greatest opportunities we have is to lean into forgiveness for ourselves and for others. And you will see that the moment you do that, the shackles that release, not only on you, but on the humans around you, so powerful, powerful. The third path to gratitude, and dare I say this one is often overlooked, because I think most people wait for the big thing to be grateful for. I'll be grateful for when this happens. I'll be grateful when I get that new job. I'll be grateful when I have this thing in my life. Most of us wait for, I'll be grateful, fill in the blank. I want you to flip that on its head, and I want you to consider gratitude in the form of everyday grace. What I call everyday grace. Now I'm going to need your help with this because I am only one brain and there's a lot more of you out there. So I want you to think, when I tell you about everyday grace, I want you to think about what are the ways that this is already in your life and you just haven't noticed it. This requires presence, yes, but not the reverence type presence. This is the moment of you've just made yourself the most perfect cup of coffee. And instead of like, oh, get in my veins so I wake up coffee, like what if you can just like hold that cup, notice that cup, smell the aroma, If you're a coffee drinker, I know you know what I'm talking. Like, take a moment and like breathe in that deliciousness that you've just created. And then can you sit with it in that first sip, right? That first sip. Okay, fine, it's gonna like wake up your veins, that's great too. But can you notice that aroma and that smell? Or maybe you're sitting down and you have a good book. Can you notice the way that you get to sit and the way that you're comforted? And maybe you pull up a blanket or something cozy. If you're like me right now, you have 3 blankets on your couch and one of them is heated and you pull them all up and you get very cozy. Can you notice that warmth? Maybe you have a dog. I have a 6-pound Yorkie miniature pinscher, and all I ever wanted was a lap dog, and I got my dream. All he wants to do is be close. But can you notice, like, the snuggle, or like how it feels when you pet your animal's fur? Like, sounds silly, right? But that's everyday grace. It's those moments that are always there for the taking. If you came here with someone, can you notice, like these two, I love it, like the way that the head feels on your shoulder? Like, can you notice that, right? Or can you notice, like, if you're bumping shoulders with someone, can you just notice that? Or as I look around and I look at some of you, like the way that you smile back to me, like that's everyday grace. It's these little moments that happen to us all day long, every single day. But we're so busy getting to the next thing that we don't notice it. And when we stop to notice, like even if you just take a moment and look around this room, what would you say? Like, what could be considered everyday grace? And give me some answers and then I will repeat it back for our folks on video. So what would you notice in here or in your own life? What could be considered an everyday grace? Anyone? Comfortable environment, yeah. Yeah. I love that. It's warm, there are lights, we have electricity. Some people don't have that. Yeah, it's appreciating all the things. Small, big, doesn't matter. What else? What other things come to mind when you think of everyday grace? What are the things that happen routinely in your life every day that maybe you haven't noticed, that if you just put a moment of appreciation on it, how does that land differently for you? Breathing. Amen for breath, right? And since we're speaking of breathing, why don't we all just take a nice big deep inhale together and a full exhale. How often do we take our breath for granted? All the time. Unless we're meditating. Or my husband right now, he's going through a chest cold. He is not taking breath for granted, right? But we take it for granted until we don't have easy access to it, right? Everyday grace for our breath, yes. Yeah, what else? I heard a couple things. Don't go quiet on me now, come back. Socks. I don't know who said socks, but bless you, yes, Riley. Socks are my best friend. I do have everyday grace for my socks. And like, think of those socks that you're saving for a special occasion. Pull those out and put them on. What are you waiting for? Fuzzy socks, yes. The fuzzy, the cozy ones, the ones that like go all the way up your legs, and we don't need to be caught outside in them probably, but the moment that you put those on and your feet are like, oh yes, thank you, I needed that. It's those moments. Again, it sounds silly, but seriously, they are everywhere. They are everywhere around us, waiting for us to appreciate them. And I promise you, if you start to notice those, even 5 little things a day. Can you notice 5 little things a day? And listen, you've already got 3 taken from the room. You can always notice, oh, it's warm. I'm grateful for the warmth. I'm so grateful for the light. And just like breathe into it for a moment. Then breathe, right? Take a deep breath. There's a second one. And then as you put on those socks, like, oh, yes. Maybe it's something else. Maybe it's your good underwear. Maybe it's your favorite shirt. Maybe it's that toast and you just enjoy it a different way. Everyday grace. And the moment we do that, a little more and a little more and a little more, we naturally stand taller. We naturally shine brighter because we are experiencing the moments of gratitude. When we experience the moments of gratitude and when you're willing to embrace everyday grace, it's not like you have to consciously think, okay, I'm going to go live in the light today because that's what Jen told me to do. You don't have to do that. If you're experiencing moments of everyday grace, you naturally will live in the light. And isn't that what we want? Rather than attaching homework to everything, and I'm a coach, I am great at attaching homework if you want, but wouldn't you rather just naturally live in the light? Lean into everyday grace, and that will help you get there. Our next letter we said is H, honor. So we have live intentionally with gratitude, and now we're going to look at honor. Honor is something that is a little bit elusive. And the reason I say that it's a little bit elusive is because honor means of high respect. In short, it means of high respect. But that can be up for interpretation, right? We could have very different people in the room, and some would feel that this person is very honorable, and some would feel that this person is very honorable, and they would completely disagree on, do you see what I'm saying here, right? So honor is a little bit elusive in that regard, but you know what's honorable for you. So when we're talking about living in the light, and we're talking about honor, I want you to think of your morals, your values. What do you see as being highly respectful? And then ask yourselves, is how I'm currently living matching? If I believe, for example, that education is important, is how I'm living aligned with that value? Those together, to me, makes honor. Because it's your alignment with how you're living and how you believe. How you believe, not how you believe. How you believe. So think about different areas in your life. What are the beliefs that you hold? I want you to think of one belief right now. You don't have to tell me what it is, but what is something very strong that you hold? For example, I recently took over the Twin Cities chapter of eWomen Network. It's seriously, they don't know this, so don't tell them this secret, but this role was made for me. Like, I am in my honey spot supporting these women that come through, and it's primarily women business owners. And one of the values that our global organization holds is that we are an inclusive network and that we support diversity. And I very deeply hold that, and I believe that, and yet our chapter in the past hasn't necessarily reflected that value. Now, because that is a value that I personally hold, it's one of the many reasons why I aligned with that organization, and because I personally hold it, now what do? My job, in order to be in honor, is I take action on that value. So I'm going to events where I can meet other women in the community that look different than I do. Oh my gosh. And I've had women question, why would I do that? And I tell them, because of honor. And because this is a value that I hold. And if I hold this, then I take action on it. Right? So basically, when we talk about honor, it's, are you walking your talk? You talk about this, well, are you walking it? We can all be talk, but do we walk it? And I want you to think of that for your own self. Like, where are you not living aligned with what you say you believe? Because as we do that, maybe it's not the light for all people, but it's the light for the right people that you are going to be aligned with. So let's go back to those two groups, right? We have, let's just call them Group A and Group B. Let's say I align with Group B, right? If I'm leaning into those values and I'm taking action with those values, Group B is going to very clearly know that I am one of them. And that we are on the same page, right? So these women of color that don't look like me, they are gonna know that they are welcome in my space because I am taking action that lends itself to believe that. Versus if I stand back quietly and say, yeah, that's a great value, I love that value, but I'm not showing up, how are they gonna know they're welcome? They're not. I want her to know very clearly that she's welcome. So what is a value that you hold that maybe you think you hold it, but are you taking action on it? When those come together, that is honor, and when we stand in that place, I believe that is one way that we can live in the light. Because isn't it a breath of fresh air when you walk into a space? Let's take Lake Harriet Spiritual Community, for example. Isn't it a breath of fresh air? You know that you walk into this space, and if you have any idea what we're all about, you know you're going to feel welcome here. You had shared that a little bit. Well, you talked about the light. Yeah, you. But being in this space, like when you walk in, you know you're going to feel welcome here because that's the value that Lake Harriet Spiritual Community holds. And so if that's a value that you hold walking in this space is like, and it comes together, right? It's like that beautiful tuning fork. And that, I believe, is where we have honor. So we have live intentionally with gratitude, honor, and our last one is trust. Now, trust can mean a variety of things depending on how you want to look at this. For me, when I talk about trust, I'm talking about this bigger, like, okay, here I am, use me. How can I be of service today? And for me, trust is all about letting go of my tight attachment to how something is supposed to look. Because generally, when I really allow myself to let go and I just trust, and I lean in knowing that there's something bigger than me, because I have done all of the other letters ahead of it, and now I can trust, it's always way better than if I planned it. Always. Show of hands, have you ever had a time when that's the case? When you're like tight, holding, and then you're like, wait, okay, let go. Let go, I'm gonna trust. And now it's better, right? Incredible. Yet how come then, when something comes around again, we feel so attached to it, and we have to remind ourselves, no, let go. It's okay, let go. Trust. Trust. I think trust is one of our, I was going to say biggest opportunities, but I already said that around everyday grace. It's all an opportunity. If you want to lean into living in the light, trust is a really great space to look at. What do you have going on in your life right now where you could bring in a little more trust? Where you might take a breath, you might lean into some everyday grace. Take a breath, grab your nice, cozy, perfect cup of coffee, perfect cup of cocoa this time of year. Lean into that, breathe into it, take a breath, go, okay, I'm gonna trust. I think of this like, if there's any yogis in the room, I think of this like the humble warrior pose, which I feel like I'm not gonna show you right now. It's like, do I show, do I not, do I show? Okay, a show. I'll show, but I'm in heels, like, okay, so humble warrior, you're in you're basically, and then you're leaning over. This is not right when you're in heels, for the record. But it's a held up tight pose, but then you bow over, right? And your arms come down. You can look it up to get a better visual. So what I want you to see from that is that it's action, and once you've taken the action to get into the pose, you're bowing. It's a humble warrior, so you're bowing. And that bowing is releasing. To me, that's trust. Humble warrior is trust. You take the action, and now you let go. I take the action, I let go, I trust. Because I'm aligned with something bigger than myself. Because I'm aligned and living from a place of light, I trust. Because I'm living intentionally, I'm not just living, I'm actually living with some intention. Is it perfect? Doesn't have to be. Who's perfect? I haven't met anyone yet. Doesn't have to be, but are you living with intention? If you're living with intention, you're leaning into some extra gratitude. I would encourage everyday grace because it's has the potential to have the biggest, not fair, has good potential to have a big impact. But if you want to go deep and like really, then we're going to lean into some forgiveness that leans to gratitude. You're doing that, and then you're leaning into honor where you're walking the talk, whatever that means to you. What do you hold true to you? What is a value that is so meaningful to you? Where in your life do you have something that you can, the moment I say it to you, you're like, oh, I need to do, yep, I say that this is meaningful to me, but I'm not taking action on it. What is that thing for you? And then once you do that, you're taking the action, then we trust, right? We get to humble warrior and we say, I've done the action. I'm living intentionally. I'm practicing some gratitude. I'm living aligned. I'm walking my talk. Doesn't have to be perfect every day, but I'm leaning in a little more, a little more, a little more. And then I trust. And I let go. Because I know that I'll be held, because I am a child of God, love, universe, spirit, whatever word is meaningful to you. I can trust because I will be held. And if that is too big for you to wrap on your shoulders right now, try this one on for size. However old you are, you've made it through all of your challenges already. You can trust that you'll make it through again. Maybe breathe into that. Maybe breathe into that. I've been through all of these things. I can trust that I'll get through. And is it possible that it might be even better than I imagined? I think so. I think so. I have one more thought I want to run by you, share with you. This is by Og Mandino. If you haven't read the Og Mandino books, check them out. Og Mandino says, I will love the light, for it shows me the way. Yet I will endure the darkness, for it shows me the stars. So when we talk about living in the light, what I really want you to remember through all of it is, yes, take those actions, live intentionally, lean into gratitude, maybe in a unique way, walk the talk, align with what is honorable to you, and trust. And also recognize that the dark moments, they have purpose too. It's not about living in the light so that we can get rid of the dark. The dark doesn't go away. It's about living in the light so that when the dark moments come, we are better equipped to handle them. It's about living in the light so that when the dark comes and it shows up, you can see what is unfolding, the challenges as the stars. Because I will tell you that the dark moments in my life have led to my greatest light. And it's because I was willing to look at the stars. It's because I'm willing to look at that darkness. Thank you so much for allowing me to share with you this morning. I pray that you remember to live intentionally, add in some extra grace, lean into that honor, and then let it go and trust, because you've got this. Trust that you've got this. Thank you.
All right. Can you hear me now? Okay, good. All right, well, that was a lot to digest. That was just jam-packed with a lot of interesting tips for how we can live our light. So take a deep breath. All right. Well, Lake Harriet Spiritual Community is a volunteer-run organization and is also supported by generous donations. So the ushers will be passing the baskets. Donations are the way we keep the lights on, we keep the doors open so we can keep offering wonderful speakers and lots of events that help us grow and share our light. So give what you can give today. There are Venmo stickers in the basket if you don't have cash. You can also donate through our website via PayPal. So give what you can and help support this community. Thank you.
I want to say thank you. Thank you. Thank you. 'Cause I'm so grateful. So grateful. Oh, grateful. I'm so grateful. So I want to say thank you for this day, Spirit. Thank you for this day. Thank you for this day, Spirit. Thank you for this day. This healing, this healing, this healing day. This healing, this healing, this healing day. Thank you for this day, Spirit. Thank you for this day. Thank you for this day, Spirit. Thank you for this day. This healing, this healing, this healing day. This healing, this healing, this healing day. Thank you for this day, Spirit. Thank you for this day. Thank you for this day, Spirit. Thank you for this day. This beautiful, this beautiful, this beautiful day. This beautiful, this beautiful, this beautiful day. Thank you for my friends, Spirit. Thank you for my friends. Thank you for my friends, Spirit. Thank you for my friends. My wonderful, my wonderful, my wonderful friends. My wonderful, my wonderful, my wonderful friends. Now thank you for this day, Spirit. Thank you for this day. Thank you for this day, Spirit. Thank you for this day. This healing, this healing, this healing day. This healing, this healing, this healing day. Thank you for this day, Spirit. Thank you for this day. Thank you for this day, Spirit. Thank you for this day. This beautiful, this beautiful, this beautiful day. This beautiful, this beautiful, this beautiful day. I want to say thank you. Thank you. I want to say thank you.
It's supposed to be dancing in church.
Oh, thank you. All right, thank you. I want to say thank you. I want to say thank you. 'Cause I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful. So grateful. So grateful. So grateful. I'm so grateful. I want to say thank you.
That's a great song. So appropriate. So, well, I'm thankful for what you've been able to contribute today. So if you'll help me bless our offering by repeating after me. God's perfect love flowing through me blesses and multiplies all that I give, all that I receive, and all that I am. Oh. All right, so as our tradition, we like to circle up, and I think we've got enough to go. I can't tell. So try and circle up. We're going to do the middle section here, as far as we can circle up, and then Jen will lead us in a closing.
Perfect.
Good job. This is perfect.
Perfect, perfect. Whenever I'm here at Lake Harriet Spiritual Community and we come to this part of our time together, I always invite you to look at the humans in the circle with us. So take a moment to look at these beautiful people that, and especially, don't we often skim past the people that are right next to us? So take a deliberate moment to look at the people right next to you and let them know that you see them, that you see the light in them, that you honor them, that you're grateful for them in this space together. Thank you for being in this space. Thank you all for being in this space and showing up. By you showing up and being in this space, you are bringing the light. Naturally, we're living in the light together as we stand in this space. Take a nice deep inhale and an exhale. As I remind you, it's about living intentionally, a little bit of grace, a lot of gratitude, some honor, and trusting that you've got it all. It's all within you. It's all there. And Rumi says, don't you know yet? It's your light that lights the world. Not hers, not theirs, yours. It's your light that lights worlds. Awesome. Thank you. Woohoo! Thanks, everyone.